So I'll be talking about a very day-to-day, very important clinical presentation but it's a huge subject. But I will try to do a very compact presentation that is a comprehensive clinical approach of diabetic foot ulcer, followed by a few cases. If you see the magnitude of the problem, among the persons with the diabetes, 15% may experience foot ulcer in their lifetime. The risk of lower extremity amputation is about 15 to 46 times higher in diabetes when we compare with those who do not have the disease. It has been seen that after amputation, 30% lose other limb in next 3 years. Clinical studies have shown that foot ulcer precedes 85% of non-traumatic amputations among the diabetic patients. And globally, every 30 seconds, a foot is lost due to poor foot health in diabetes. So huge burden. But early detection and appropriate treatment can prevent a large number of complications, including amputations. So what are the causes of diabetic foot? Uncontrolled diabetes contributes to the development of neuropathy and peripheral arterial disease by a complex metabolic pathways. Loss of sensation caused by peripheral neuropathy, ischemia due to peripheral arterial disease, or maybe combination of both, which is known as neuroischemic diabetic foot ulcer. A combination of neuropathy, abnormal loading of the foot, repeated microtrauma, metabolic abnormalities of the bone leads to inflammation, osteolysis, fractures, dislocation, deformities, which in turn causes ulceration. This is a basically problem triad. Neuropathy, deformity, ischemia, all contribute to diabetic foot ulcer. But infection, which is the most common complication and the most frequent associated factor of non-traumatic lower extremity amputation. This is a flowchart of mechanism of foot ulcer and amputation. As I already told, there are three factors: neuropathy, peripheral arterial disease, and deformity. Neuropathy leads to loss of protective sensation, foot deformity, dry skin, which leads to unnoticed repetitive trauma, improper loading of the foot due to deformities, cracks, fissures, all leads to ulcer. And peripheral arterial disease gives rise to ischemia, also contributes ulcer formation. And deformity also, because of neuropathy trauma, leads to ulcer formation. And if left untreated, goes to gangrene, thereby amputation. But infection, usually it is present, which is because of barefoot walking, because of ignorance, lack of education to the health patients as well as healthcare providers, and lack of foot protection devices. This all leads to ulcer formation if left untreated, thereby gangrene. Interestingly, in diabetic neuropathic ulcer, even after successful treatment, management, the recurrence rate is about 66% and the amputation rate is 12%. So counseling of the patient, inertia, again comes, doctor. That is very important, counseling of the patient, that foot care should be taken care of in throughout the course of the disease, throughout the life. How do we classify? There are various ways to classify the diabetic foot ulcer, but one of the most popular and validated classification is Magid-Wegener classification. Other classification like University of Texas and International Association of Enterostromal Therapy for staging of chronic wound. But mostly we follow the Wegener's classification from stage 0 to 5. 0 is normal, 1 superficial ulcer, deep ulcer, abscess, osteitis, gangrenes of the forefoot, and lastly gangrene of the entire foot. But here, if you see, till grade 3, if it is managed, if it is diagnosed, if it is treated properly, it can be reversible. But if it goes beyond that, grade 4, that means once gangrene develops, amputation is inevitable. How do we assess diabetic foot? There are various modalities like neuropathy, ischemic, deformity, callus, swelling, skin breakdown, infection, necrosis. If you see the musculoskeletal examination of the foot, first look for the range of the motion, strength of the motion against resistance, and look for the deformities. There are various deformities. Usually we come across, as you all know, hallux valgus, hammer toe, claws toe, pes cavus, place planus, also known as flat foot. This all leads to ulcer formation. So look carefully for that. Cutaneous examination consists of careful examination dorsal as well as ventral aspect of the foot, which includes Look for the callus, superficial fissures, minor breaks, any other lesion which may be clinician think it's not important, but look carefully. Maybe a mycotic infection, interdigital space infection, look carefully. And neurological examinations consist of pressure perception by monofilament test, which is very useful screening tool, vibration perception by 128 Hz tuning fork, tactile sensation by cotton wool, pin touch for the discrimination, reflexes by Achilles tendon reflexes, and temperature, hot and cold. Vascular assessment is very important. Clinically, look for the color, look for the change in the temperature, because ischemic foot, in ischemic foot, you can see the temperature is cold, but in case of neuropathic ulcer, it may be warm. So color is also very important. You can see the infection, hidden infection. Carefully observe for the foot pulses, like dorsal spadius artery, posterior tibial artery. Look for the capillary refill. Normally, it should not be more than 2 seconds. Investigation by duplex scan and ABI index, usually practiced in some centers. It is nothing but ratio of highest systolic blood pressure at the ankle, dorsal spadius artery or posterior tibial, to the systolic blood pressure, systolic pressure at the arm. It's measured using a Doppler device. How do we interpret the ABI ratios? This normal is 0.9 to 1.2, mild is 0.7 to 0.9, moderate is 0.4 to 0.7, and severe limb ischemia, it's less than 0.4. And if it is more than 1.2, it is declared as a non-compressible. Other investigation modalities not usually practiced in primary setting, that is sensory by biothersiometry, foot structure biomechanics by pedobarography, skin by transcutaneous oxygen tension measurement, motor function by electrophysiological testing, deformities by X-ray, foot pressure by Harris mat, vascular by Duplay and ABI scanning. How do we manage diabetic foot ulcer? The primary goal is very simple, just to obtain wound closure, as plain as that. Objectives of treatment are reduction of the risk of infection and amputation, improving the function and the quality life of the patient, reducing the healthcare cost. A good wound care treatment is largely determined by 4 factors: offloading, debridement, moist dressing, and control of infection if present. But at all the stages, tight blood glucose control is an important factor. It can decrease about 50% chance of foot problems. So this has to be given utmost importance. Offloading by definition means avoidance of all mechanical stress on the ischio extremity while maintaining necessary ambulation. There are different strategies, include total contact cast, which is a gold standard, other casts like boots, surgical shoes, half shoes, sandals, felted foams, and so many and modalities are available. Appropriate footwear is significantly reduce ulcer recurrence. Debridement, that is the removal of necrotic or senescent tissue as well as foreign and infected material from the wound. Indications like it should be done or mostly done in grade 3 or greater ulcer infected wounds. Sharp debridement is essential part of the ulcer therapy. Moist wound dressing it prevents tissue dehydration, increases breakdown of the dead tissue and fibrin, contributing to the autolytic debridement, potentiates interaction of growth factors with their target cells, reduces incidence of infection and associated with less pain. Diabetic foot infection sometimes might be limb-threatening. Signs of infection may be absent in neuropathic ulcer. Superficial infection is usually caused by gram-positive and deep infection is usually polymicrobial. Surgical debridement is essential in the case of deep infection. Osteomyelitis, if diagnosed, should be treated. This is another modality of treatment not usually practiced, especially practiced in the higher centers like normobaric hyperoxic therapy in diabetic foot ulcer. It is potentially attractive alternative to the hyperbaric therapy because of high availability, good patient compliance, cost effective, decreased complication, few technical requirements. I'm not going in the details. So now, how to prevent foot problems? Regular inspection of an examination of foot as well as the footwear. The every patient, if he or she comes to the clinic, look for the foot after clinical examination, as well as the clinical attendant or the paramedical staff should be trained, should be aware of the examination, inspection of the footwear also, glycemic control, education of the patient, family, as well as healthcare providers, and appropriate footwear. Diabetic foot ulcer treatment modalities are microbiological control, wound control, vascular control if present, mechanical control, metabolic control, educational control. That means it needs multidisciplinary approach. I would like to present a few cases. A male patient aged about 40 years came with a dorsal foot ulcer, which was recent on onset, about 7 days. He was previously diagnosed as a diabetic but did not take any treatment. Examination-wise, blood pressure was normal. Biochemical parameters are fasting sugar 200, PP 390, A1C of 10.6 with normal kidney function. Look at the unhealthy margin of the ulcer with necrotic tissue, discharges, swollen foot, etc. Pharmacological treatment was given with for hyperglycemia, Idagas twice daily, antibiotic linezolid given, injection cefoperazone, tazobactam, and insulin doses were titrated to achieve glycemic target within a week, along with dressing regularly 3 times. Local treatment given or wound debridement were done, offloading with diabetic slippers, local application of lincomycin and hydrogel, that is amorphous hydrogel with colloidal silver. After 2 weeks of therapy, injectable antibiotic was withdrawn, only orally was continued. Improvement was grossly noticed as before. The deep tissues like tendons, etc. was exposed, which was covered by healthy granulation tissue. After 3 weeks, patient was followed up continuously for the dressings. Local applications were changed to hydrogel gel and placental extracts. After the remission of the active infections, ulcer showed gross improvement. That is, healthy granulation tissue was almost covered throughout the wound from the below, as well as the size of the ulcer also got reduced. The insulin was continued for the glycemic control, and the patient was asked for a twice a week follow-up for the wound management in my foot clinic. After 8 weeks of treatment, ulcer was totally covered by healthy granulation tissue, and the patient was advised to do the self-dressing with placental extract twice a week. He came after 10 weeks with complete recovery. Later, he was switched over to OHA for the glycemic management. Another case, a female patient with lower BMI of 21 with long-standing uncontrolled diabetes of 8 years duration, with compromised renal function with eGFR of 35, came with deep plantar foot ulcer of more than 4 months duration. She was being treated with OHA and antibiotic elsewhere. Biochemical parameters were fasting 260, PP sky high 358, A1C 12.1. She was anemic, hypothyroid, with compromised renal function. Vitals were normal, except BP was around slightly lower side. X-ray wise, there was no bony involvement. If you see the ulcer, you can make very clearly, you can see through the ulcer, the tendon, the muscles, the necrotic tissue, unhealthy margin, serosanguinary discharge, and so on. Pharmacological treatment, basal insulin glargine was given along with the glyclazide, teneligliptin. Darbe protein was given for anemia, LT4 for hypothyroidism. Clindamycin was given 3 times a day along with the cefoperazone tazobactam, as well as the injection placentrix was given on alternate day. Local treatment, debridement and offloading was done. Local application along with lincomycin along with placental extracts was given. Podia scan was done and appropriate footwear was provided to her for the offloading. She was followed up thrice a week for the glycemic control and local ulcer management in my foot clinic. After 3 weeks of treatment, healthy granulation tissue started appearing. Injectable antibiotics stopped. Clindamycin dose was reduced twice daily. Injection placentrix dose was continued on alternate day. After 6 weeks, oral antibiotics were stopped and the glycemic target was achieved after titration of the basal insulin along with OHA. Patient was showed improved lesion after 7 weeks, and the dressing was continued with a normal saline wash and placental extract application. After 9 weeks, the size of the ulcer gradually reduced with overlying healthy skin. The complete healing was noticed after 9 weeks of treatment. What I mean to say, the diabetic foot ulcer, not only the control of infection, there are different modalities. You should approach comprehensively to get a complete recovery, and more on top of that, patient should be controlled, educated that this might recur if you neglect your food. Lastly, managing your diabetes is not a science, it's an art. Thank you for your patient sharing.
Dr. Patwari, are you there? Dr. Ajay Patwari? Dr. Ajay Patwari, are you there? Yeah. Hello, Dr. Patwari.
No.
Please, please comment on his talk.
Dr. Soumya, I just wanted to know. Dr. Soumya, are you?
Yes. I'm there, Dr. Arya. Go on.
You can stop sharing, Dr. Soumya. Yeah.
Yeah. In your experience, diabetic foot with SGLT2, especially EMPA, have you come across?
Look, I cannot comment on specifically on that. I basically practice in a very rural area, and diabetic foot ulcer is very common among, as Dr. Dandania said, people with very lower BMI. So glycemic management, I usually prefer insulin because usually they come with a higher glycemic parameter along with a compromised renal function.
Are you not using SGLT2?
I am using, but your question is it any pertinent to with a diabetic foot ulcer?
Yeah, your experience.